All right, class, welcome. Thank you for showing up. We're going to be working further with fractions. I really think it's important that you understand fully what fractions are and how they work. If I'm not giving you enough practice, you definitely should look elsewhere for adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions. But the other thing is understanding a fraction as a whole. Often you'll be asked to understand, hey, what else do I need to fill in the hole or to make this whole? I have a circle here, not the best drawn, but no worries. You have 3/10 of it in this section, you have 5/10 of it in this section, and the question is, hey, how much is in this section? Well, the first thing you have to understand is all of this together, all of these added together, these pieces, they're going to give you a 1. And so it should make sense that, hey, if we add those two sections together, which are 3/10 and 5/10, and then, for right now, I'm just going to kind of call this a question mark. Later on, we're going to call it other stuff, but, all of this here should equal 1. Now, a tricky part about this problem is you might have to kind of think about, well, that last bit, it's going to be a tenth of something. We have 3/10, we have 5/10, and this is also going to be something tenths. And really, this is the key right here. Because if we, do a little bit of math here, we combine our 10, and on top we combine our numbers 3 plus 5 plus the question mark. Now, the top has to be equal to 10 if all of this is equal to 1. Because 1, hey, the same has to be on the top and bottom. So in order to make this 10, that question mark is going to have to be a 2. Now, I could see that I already made a little bit of a mistake that might be confusing to you. I put 2 question marks here, and really I shouldn't do that. I want to know what number here is going to give me that whole value. And so I found out here that, hey, it's a 2. Now if I just kind of think backwards, and this could be a little weird, say, hey, well that 2 made the top 10, so that must have been a 2 here. And that was really the value I was looking for, is the 2/10 that go in that little pi section. So 2/10 works, but it's not reduced. In other words, we could manipulate a little bit here. As we did in previous sections, the 10 becomes a 2 times a 5, and hey, our 2's cancel out, and we're left with a 1 on top, so our final answer is going to be 1/5. Now, here I have a new circle where 2/11 is here, here, and 3/11 is here, and I'm asked to figure out what is this other section. In other words, this is going to be some bit of 11. Again, remember, when I add up all my fractions, I should get 1 as my answer. So 1 is going to be the 3/11 plus the 2/11 plus this last little bit that I called question mark over 11. And again, if I follow up with combining the 11s on the bottom and trying to figure out what the question mark would be to make 11 on top, I should be able to see that 6 is what works. So I can kind of look back and say, hey, 6/11 is what works, and 6/11, that's not going to reduce because 11 is a prime. So the answer here for this section is just going to be the 6/11. And notice I write that slant like so. Ooh, if you can see it. Sometimes people will write fractions like so. I'll try to stay consistent and write 6/11. Alright, here we have a new example, and as it should be expected, things are going to get a little tricky here. We have a 1/4 of a section here, a 3/8 of a section here. We need to figure out what this section is. Again, the entire thing all added together is going to equal a 1. Now, here I've put my 1/4, my 3/8, and a huge question mark, and that question mark represents some fraction. Hopefully you can see that we're going to have to use our phantom 1 concept, because I have 1/4 and 3/8. I'm going to have to add these together. That 1/4 is going to have to change into something with an 8 on the bottom. As it works out, 2 on the bottom works, so I'll put a 2 on the top. This ends up giving me a 2/8. Now, hopefully you'll know that that means that this last section is going to be something divided by an 8. And like I did last time, I'm going to check, hey, 2 plus 3 plus something should equal 8 to make this whole thing a 1. And since 2 plus 3 is a 5, that question mark has to be a 3. And as it turns out, that 3/8, that little section is also 3/8, just like this section. Alright, here we're faced with the same issue. Hopefully you can read. There's a little question mark there. We want to try and figure out what is this little pi section if I have 5/12, 1/3, and 1/6. Again, know that this whole thing is going to equal 1. And if I write everything out like the last problems, this is what I end up with. Now, we are definitely going to be using our phantom 1 here. We have a 12, a 3, and a 6, and each of these numbers, we need to manipulate these fractions so each of the denominators are all the same. Now, I've done a lot of work here. I've seen that, hey, if I multiply 3 times 4, I will get the 12. So I made my phantom 1 a 4/4 here. And I notice here that if I multiply 6 times 2, I will also get a 12. So I turned my phantom 1 into a 2/2. But here, I didn't have to do anything with my phantom 1 because everything's worked out. Alright, so I have, again, thrown some things in here. And what I've done is I've done 5 times 1, there it is. I've done 4 times 1, there it is. I've done 2 times 1, there that is. And here in this last question mark, we know it's going to be something over 12. So I have a question mark here on top. On the bottom, these are all 12s. 3 times 4 is 12, 6 times 2 is 12. This is a 12 with our question mark on the top. So we get a 12 here on the bottom. So 5 plus 4 plus 2, that's going to give us 11. So that question mark just has to be the 1/12. And so our final answer for that little tiny section is 1/12. And our last problem, dealing with the whole section, we have 1/10, 3/5, and we need to figure out what that last bit is. Again, I've written out my numbers, 3/5, 1/10, and I put a question mark over 10 because I can already see, well, that 5 is going to change into a 10, so I already know that that last piece is going to be a 1/10 of something. I'm going to pull out a phantom 1 and make it a 2/2, making the whole thing a 6/10. And again, I'm going to check, hey, 6 plus 1 plus something has to be 10. That something has to be a 3. So 3/10 is what this section is. Alright, that concludes chapter 1.1. We'll be moving on to chapter 1.2 in our next session. Thanks for joining me. I'm the Math Witch.